Nico. I'm doing a presentation on DACA, also known as Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And before I begin, I'd just like to explain why I chose this photo here. This is from a protest when Donald Trump's administration was wanting to remove or completely dismantle DACA entirely. And I feel like this is a very powerful photo that explains that not just it's not your typical adults that are out here protesting. This is youth that is directly affected by a program that is put in place through an executive order, but it's provided a lot of benefits and it's done a lot of good. So with that, I'd like to move on to the first slide, the history of DACA. And I'm just going to explain it in 5 parts. Like I already mentioned, it was established through an executive order, also done in 2012 through the Obama administration. They originally were going to call this DREAM, hence why they got the name Dreamers. But the problem with this is that it did not pass through any level of Congress. And so when Obama noticed that that had failed, he used his only power as president that kind of allows him to jump over Congress's head and implemented the executive order, which this executive order has done way more good than there has been any harm. When this was put into place, it originally only provided a few rights, and it was mainly targeted towards the youth that were illegally brought into the United States when they were younger than 16. And then soon after that, or years after that, when Trump had been administered into office, his administration tried dismantling this, like I had mentioned in the introduction. And during this dismantling, there had been a couple of faults on the Republican Party trying to dismantle it for the wrong reasons. And there was a federal judge who basically denied the administration from dismantling it. Now, the only problem is that we're no longer able to accept new applicants for DACA. We are strictly allowing all of the previous applicants, the 800,000, to renew theirs. And the odd thing about Trump's administration trying to dismantle it was that towards the end of his career or term as president, they actually extended the renewal period by a year, which some may say was a political choice. That way he had a chance to be revoted into office, maybe even play favors towards a group of people that wouldn't necessarily vote for him. But it's an odd point to look at. And the video that I provided in the link there is by Boundless Immigration. They do a really good job of breaking down DACA and explaining how it works, how to apply, the history of it as well. Which leads me into the next point, my body. I'm going to be going over 3 points that I think are really important about DACA. What it is, I kind of already explained some of that in the history, but I'll be going more in depth. Second is who qualifies. You'd be surprised at the amount of people that qualify for this. The problem is that people don't know how accessible it is, and some people just don't have easy access to it. And there's even the fear that applying for this will put them in jeopardy in the future, which is one of the problems that have been mentioned with DACA. And the final thing is, what opportunities does DACA provide? And we'll also be discussing some of the cons that come with this program. So let's get into it. What is DACA? Like I said, it was originally for the youth. When this program was implemented, it was specifically targeting the idea that, hey, there's children who are innocent who are brought here against their will, put into a country that has a lot of good opportunities for them. And so why wouldn't we give them the chance to have some rights, access to such things as like Social Security or education, or in some states they have access to even state healthcare or local healthcare that is more accessibly provided to them rather than using their Social Security number provided through this DACA program. And now, or as it tended to develop after 2012, it tended to gain more rights and even provided more protections for the individuals a part of DACA. Although they had to renew once a year, the more and more that this program developed before coming to a halt when Trump's administration had came in, there was a lot more people applying, and there was continuous renewals showing that this was growing as a program, and it was being successful in the fact that it was providing more opportunities for people who are providing for this country that necessarily don't get the attention or reputation that they deserve. And now, DACA, as of today, is no longer accepting new applicants. And this is mainly due to the fact that the judge had denied Trump's administration from dismantling it. Then there was a more recent court battle that caused them to say, well, we'll no longer accept new applications, but we will allow them to renew it. And now we're kind of at a standstill where this program seems like it might be terminated or it might just stay here. The only problem with that is that this program doesn't provide enough protection for the people who are falling under this. They aren't technically or legally citizens under this program, yet they have some of the protections of citizens. And if this was to be taken away at any point, all of the protections they have are not protected because it's simply that easy to take away and dismantle, which maybe we can make a change, but a lot of that has to come with talking about it more, informing the people who are uninformed about it, and even changing the way that this program works. That way it can be more accessible, can have more protections, not only for the people who fall under it, but as well as this program itself. That way it's not as easily dismantleable. Next, moving on to who qualifies. This picture right here is directly from Boundless. They do a great job of explaining what is required of DACA applicants and what allows them to be denied and accepted. One of the biggest things that I noticed here is that you had to have entered the United States unlawfully prior to turning 16, which goes hand in hand with the idea that this was directly targeting the youth when this was first implemented. Now notice at the bottom of this picture of the DACA requirements, they kind of implemented this later on, explaining that immigrants up to the age of 31 can also file for the protections and opportunities that this program offers without having to jump through all of the same loops, just because it's technically a little bit more difficult to prove that you've lived in the United States since 2007 of June 15th. And you have to have been born on 1981 or after at the time of this picture. And another thing is that you have to prove that your intent to live in the United States is there, along with the idea that you've been present throughout your entire time since, I believe it mentions 2012. And along with this, you have to have completed some school. You cannot have illegally immigrated here and then not done anything. They want you to be a contributing member of society, in quotation marks. That's one of the ways that they define this, or it is interpreted when it was written into law, or written in through the executive order. And as well, you have to be an outstanding or good citizen, which just means that you haven't been convicted of a felony or a serious misdemeanor. However, they do allow for a few other misdemeanors, just because obviously there's the opportunity for you to not understand the laws when you first immigrate here, even if it was illegally. And so there's a little bit of leeway there. As far as who qualifies for this, we need to recognize that this type of program is also directly affecting the mental health of the individuals who are illegally immigrated here. Even if they weren't here by choice, they are still affected by the idea that, hey, I might get deported one day and I no longer have the opportunity of living in the stable place that I thought I was going to be able to live. Another problem with this program being able to protect some people but yet not guarantee that the protection is going to be there forever. Which leads us to the last point. The opportunities that this thing brings, I've already mentioned quite a few, but there's quite a few interesting things that you're not allowed to do when under the DACA program. One of the things that I thought was weird is that you aren't allowed to vacation out of state, but you are allowed to work out of state. So as long as you get permission to work out of state and you have a job lined up, you're allowed to move out of state or temporarily visit out of state and still be protected under the same program's benefits. You also have no access to financial aid. Even if you're going to college, even if you already went through all of our school system, even if you seem like the most American, even though that's not the proper term, citizen out there, you still have no access to financial aid, which is ridiculous. You have people who are contributing to taxes, to social welfare, to all sorts of things that normal citizens provide for, or some even evade somehow, and yet they have access to financial aid. However, some states do provide financial assistance to those individuals who are in need of it. The last thing that I wanted to point out that's really important is DACA does not have a path to citizenship. And that's one major flaw with this program, is that yes, it does provide a lot of great opportunities that make individuals feel like they're a part of the system without necessarily being a part of it. The only problem is that, let's say you wanted to become a citizen after being a part of this DACA program for so long, there is no way of making that happen through this program. You still have to go through the extremely flawed immigration system that we have that allows you to become a naturalized citizen of the United States, which, by the way, is way backed up, poorly done, and extremely outdated. Now, to conclude, I chose this topic for a few reasons. The biggest one is that I think it's something that needs to be talked about more. When I was in high school, I had known a little bit about it, and I didn't necessarily have the opportunity to um, learn as much as I could have. Maybe I could have, talked to my friends who were part of this program more, but at the time I was a little bit ignorant and I didn't understand how important something like this is to those individuals. Because when I was in high school, I was definitely not focused on that. I was a member of speech and debate, so I got to talk about important political topics all the time, but this wasn't something that was brought to my attention until I was till I was a junior in high school. And something that made me really relate to the topic is that I had a couple of friends that directly were a part of this program, as well as knew a few friends of friends that were affected by this program as well. And at the time, this is when Trump was just elected into office. There was a couple of issues about wanting to dismantle it, about him basically making a bunch of racist comments, specifically in relation to the border of Mexico and the United States down near Texas and California. And so I, at the time, thought the best way that I could go about talking about this and learning more about it was writing a speech about it. And so I wrote a speech making fun of the fact that Trump used such childish ways to refer to immigrants and refer to the border at the border between Mexico and the United States with a wall. Like, a wall is going to stop people from illegally immigrating here when majority of people happen to get here regardless. Whether there's a fence, whether there's people stopping them, whatever it is, people are going to get here, and we just need to be able to provide the opportunity for those people. And so in that speech, I thought it was really interesting and really cool to learn about how we can provide opportunities for illegal immigrants, especially to those who are the innocent ones who weren't necessarily coming here out of ill intent, which are majority of the people who immigrate here. And another one of the reasons why I wanted to learn more about this topic now rather than when I was just in high school is because I know a lot has happened since I was in high school, which means a lot about this program has changed. I had no idea that they were no longer accepting new applicants. And so doing this topic, I ended up learning that, and I thought that was extremely important, especially to be able to now share this knowledge with other people who need to know about it. But all in all, we learned about the history of DACA and how it has provided many opportunities for illegal immigrants and maybe even given them an opportunity to be a huge contributing member of society. We've also gone over what I thought were three important points about DACA is what is it? That way people can have a better understanding of it. Who qualifies for this? Because it's extremely important for people to know that yes, there's 800,000 people who applied for this, but there's 1.8 million people in total that are estimated to qualify for this program. We're still missing 1 million people who could qualify for this. And the third point was just simply talking about how it's kind of flawed. It does have its benefits, but there definitely needs to be some change in this program. And that's all. Thank you.